Okay,
It's
well,
7 o'clock.
Hang on. Everybody stop talking. It looks stupid when we start the meeting. And we don't want to look stupid. Okay, there we go.
good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June 17th edition of the Washington County, Oregon Committee for Community Involvement, the CCI. My name is Bruce Bartlett. I'm the chair of this group. Mary Manso, wave your hand, is vice chair. Virginia Bruce is ex-chair and publisher of an amazing community newsletter. Paul Johnson covers the rural part of the county. Jill Warren makes sure that natural resources are well considered, as well considered as they can be, along with Jim Long. And the others, Dan Hausman and Nancy, is that Fletcher or Hazlett?
It's Nancy Fletcher.
Nancy Fletcher. Okay.
Yeah.
On the transportation subcommittee. So welcome, everybody. And the first thing on our agenda, which is going to be a lively agenda tonight, is the formation of the land use subcommittee, talking about the land use subcommittee. And so to start that conversation, I'm going to put it up on the, oh my gosh, on the,
Are you going to share it?
I'm going to share it. But
He can't find it.
well,
While he's doing that, if you can make me co-host, I can promote people.
I want a promotion with a raise.
yeah, I'd like a raise too.
Good luck with that.
Oh, you mean there's some budget problems?
Just a second here. Yeah.
Well, we're waiting for Bruce. Did anybody notice that there is an issue paper that is being released? Well, it's under discussion at the Planning Commission meeting tomorrow on rural ADUs.
You noticed
And
it. I'm glad.
I think, one of the questions is this something that the land use subcommittee is going to be tracking?
We don't know. We haven't organized yet. We aren't formed yet. We haven't
Well,
decided on our officers, but I'm sure we would consider that as one of the many.
So I think, the question there is with your form, is that something that would be included in how you've outlined the organization?
Of the committee?
Yeah.
Sure.
Another interesting thing with the BCC was that they were going to talk about a resolution to rescind the DEI stuff.
We're going to talk about that later.
Great.
Yeah, no, that's.
Well, they pulled it from the agenda.
They pulled it from the agenda?
Yep.
Yes.
I didn't catch that.
Thanks to Commissioner Fye.
Wow.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's good, actually, isn't it?
Well, we haven't
Okay.
really pondered it deeply, but
So
I just read
the
somebody's deal in the Cedar Mill News,
yeah, somebody was spewing voluminously.
right?
Yeah. So do you see the proposed form of the land use subcommittee shared?
Yeah, but it needs to be full screen or something.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Double click on it. Yeah, it just got.
Is that better?
No.
No, I would go out of that sharing and go back and pick the window. You're just sharing your screen. Double click on the window when the sharing thing comes up.
Oh, okay.
I know, it's hard to remember month to month. No. Ah, that's better. A little bit.
I have your approval. Okay. So I took the liberty of doing a little bit of editing to clear things up, and I see that there's a couple of odd processing typos in it, but we'll ignore those. So the land use subcommittee current thinking is we have an umbrella group for addressing general land use issues, and it deals with it in all things. It deals with goal 1. So that was first, and then the subcommittee will perform a variety of tasks.
May perform a variety of tasks.
May. So Jim, why don't you sort of take it away and sort of walk us
So
through some of
is
this.
that a edit we need rather than saying task subcommittee will perform? Should it say task subcommittee may perform?
I would prefer to have that. You know, we're volunteers. We'll do what we can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So we can change that.
It is that's the way it's stated in the next statement, the specific tasks.
Yeah. May
Uh,
perform.
I
Hmm.
mean, it's like you're listing tasks twice the way you've got it set up here. What would you like me to do? Read through it so that we
Well,
all hear it,
so
and we can comment on it?
yeah, I tried to get it out with enough lead time to get a little review. I don't know if that succeeded or not.
Maybe a short statement about why it's needed.
This is an idea that Robert Bailey had. Robert Bailey of the Helvetia area had, and it's, I mean, to put it in one framework, just last month and maybe the month before, Mary Manso had said, well, this is exactly what the CCI is supposed to be doing, is addressing land use issues. So what we're going to do is start a subcommittee to look at land use issues and spend our time talking about the land use issues and coming up with some comments, plans, ideas to deal with it. So we would study and advocate for citizen. Well, we didn't say that, but indeed, I guess we would be advocating for citizen involvement in land use planning. The next thing has 2 question marks at the front of the.
That's a typo.
Okay. We would look at the public process for notification of development applications. We would review. We would go to each CPO and ask to review what development applications have had in their CPO, and whether there were good public notice, and whether there were neighborhood meetings, and whether the CPO members have been able to attend, and whether they provided feedback to DULT, and whether the Department of Land Use and Transportation responded. We would monitor the implementation, inventory, and assessment preservation of significant natural resources. So that's directly back to the significant natural resources part. We would study issues and advocate for proper integration of middle housing. Now, that's not a word I'd used in my form. By integration, I hope you don't mean, versus segregation.
It's
Okay.
integration into the urban landscape.
All right. Well, that might be something that would be might get a better word, I would suggest.
Okay. Rather than integrate.
Right. There might
tell
be a
you
better
what.
word. I'm not sure what that is right now, but you people are smarter than I am.
Well, but you're plenty smart. So at the end of this meeting, why don't you take this version? I'll send you the Word document, and you can edit it with the things that we've identified.
Well, okay. Why don't we give me your thoughts on this integration thing?
Well, I think that is it could be more specific. Sure.
I just got a quick question. Who wrote this?
So three
I
people,
wrote the first form, and it was a one-page uh, committee initiation form,
Yes.
and then I sent it to Bruce.
well, there were several people. It was different pieces in a format that was hard to work with. So I cleaned it
Where,
up a
What
bit.
where
does
did it
that mean,
say?
cleaned it up?
I edited it so that it made sense.
Well, see, I read the first one and I thought it made sense. So I I'm just trying to figure out what is different
Well,
now.
it's what you see in front of you.
I know, but
With numbers and bullet points?
I would have to have the original in front of
Well,
me to be able to tell you what's different about it.
well, that might not do you as much good as reviewing what's in front of you to see what you think of it.
I'm trying, but it's my first time seeing it.
Right. And so I don't necessarily want to try to wordsmith this thing right now, which is why giving it to the back to the land use subcommittee after we've kind of gone through the high level discussion of it.
Okay, so for today, we're going to review it and talk about it,
Yeah.
and hopefully approve it so that the members who want to be on the land use subcommittee can meet and see if we want to make some amendments and bring them back as one of our
Yeah.
first tasks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Virginia, what do you got?
I'm wondering if the purview of this subcommittee will include the state, because a lot of the challenges to land use and our involvement in it
Okay,
have been
so the way
coming
this
from
got
the
structured
state.
is the way I structured this is the tasks are the first bullet points are the general purview. And then the year-end data and the numbered lists are the specific things that
Ah,
I got out of the group saying they were going to do.
yeah,
So
good.
number two is perform an analysis of the formal state and county goals, laws, and procedures related to middle housing, and by extension, anything.
Yeah, that should be added.
Okay.
And by extension, anything? What does that mean?
Well, I mean,
Well,
perform analysis of these goals.
not just middle housing, but all
It's
land use issues
this
at
is
the
a
state level.
specific task. Um, uh, so it is part general because the committee will take on other chores, and it's specific because middle housing is a thing right now.
Now I'm confused. Is the committee only going to focus on middle housing?
No, I didn't say that. I said
Okay.
that the first thing that the committee said they were going to do was to look at middle housing. But by extension, if you look at the state laws regarding middle housing, why not look at them regarding anything to do with land use? And I'm thinking specifically of goal one things.
Okay, Bruce, could I go back to talking about this and explaining it the way we had it set up?
Yes.
The second paragraph there, it says, and again, year-end data will be tallied in a report submitted to WCCI. We hadn't necessarily said it would go to the Board of Commissioners yet at this point. I think it needs to be approved by WCCI first. But here's some examples of specific tasks the subcommittee may perform. And these are mostly exactly the way that the bullets there are almost exactly the way that I had numbered the tasks. The first one, to develop a list of issues related to statewide land use goals. So our first thing is goal one, and then people have an interest in middle housing, and goal five, and we're going to look at all 19 goals and see if there are some issues related to them. We will be able to, the public, if they communicate with us one way or another, we can add issues to the goals. Number two, perform an analysis of formal state county goals procedures related to middle housing. Analysis will include comparisons between state and county and cities. Any potential misalignments or inconsistencies will be discussed with CCI leadership. coordinate with commissioners and LUT staff to improve public notification of pending middle housing applications. Work with DLCD, LCDC, and the Citizen Involvement Advisory Committee staff to, well, it shouldn't be just staff, it should be the committee and staff, to assure middle housing applications comply with goals and codes of statewide planning goal 1 requiring community involvement in all aspects of planning.
What are you doing? Thank you.
I don't know how, I didn't know how to read that. Um, 5, engage with state associations, the League of Oregon Cities, Association of Oregon Counties, etc., to explore procedural solutions for middle housing. 6, engage with state legislators for law changes to allow for community engagement. 7, outreach to community members to educate about middle housing and significant natural resources. And then it says, and partners. That's something that Bruce added. I'm not sure what exactly you meant.
Well, I'm not sure sitting here. In general, it was reach out to other community partners about these issues.
Okay. The next
And you
thing, go ahead.
could you mean other partners in like cities?
Yes.
Okay, I'm making notes as we talk here. Okay, then one of the changes in here that Bruce put in, he put co-chairs Jim and Nancy. And I had let that potential and to be determined. I think when we have a meeting, we'll talk about and see who wants to be chair and who has the time, and we'll do it that way. Secretary is something that Bruce added. Yes, we should have a secretary, but we also need to document what we discuss as it is and as we go along. And that's the way I typically do the significant natural resource meetings. Sustaining members, well, Ayla and Robert Bailey have we've met a couple of times, and they are still interested in being involved.
I wanted to identify the primary interest holders in engaging this, and people will come into it and then leave depending upon the subject matter. But Ayla and Robert seem to be like consistent participants.
Right. Then here, Bruce added ad hoc members, and indeed with any committee, subcommittee, any resident can bring land use issues forward and work with the officers and standing members to advocate for their positions. So
that was supposed to be sustaining members.
Okay. I'm typing that out here. Okay, and then number of members. Well, we need at least 3, and we could have more. I don't know that we want to limit on it. I think if there's a lot of interest, we want to have citizen involvement. We're not saying that it needs to have people from the real estate community or the Home Builders Association or one thing or another. This is a citizen-based committee. It's not appointed. It is, as has been said, those who participate are the ones who are involved. If you show up. Frequency of meetings. Our S&R meeting is typically the second Tuesday of the month. Maybe that's what we'll choose for this. We'll see what we can select and see what it is.
During the day? Because that's CPO1 meeting evening.
I don't know. It is likely there will be times when the middle house. Okay, see, I'm reading this for the first time. It is likely there are times when the middle housing subcommittee members will communicate on a daily or weekly basis. Sure, we can do that, but we do have to follow the public meetings law to make decisions. text which might be used to recruit members. This subcommittee will assess and suggest improvements to citizen involvement in planning, protection of significant natural resources, and impacts of middle housing. Well-planned land use decisions are important for future generations of all species. So that includes, of course, our over 340 different species of wildlife in the community. Mary, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering how the subcommittees are going to interact with this committee. Is it everybody that's on the Significant Natural Resource Committee would be part of this committee, or would it be select members that would be part of this committee? I'm just wondering about the mechanics there.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll notify people of if this gets approved. We'll notify people of a meeting probably via Zoom, and see who shows up, and people can join as is. So I, of course, have the list of significant natural resources committee members. But we can add, post it on the county website, and other people can join as is, as long as the Zoom link works. We might be okay with that. But
this is something that we need.
So it's, Mary, it's not easy to answer how it's going to happen.
Well, I just want to be sure that
see who
something
shows up.
So I would like
I want to
to
be sure that somebody thinks about that piece of it. I think the other question I have is, do you envision this mainly as a goal 1 focus, or is it way broader? And how do you determine where the guardrails are? Or are you going to take on any and everything that members of the committee bring forward as an issue they feel is important?
Well, obviously, goal 1 is the first bit of interest for CCI and a land use subcommittee. There are other things that are really hot these days, like middle housing.
Well, but a component
can
of
I
middle
answer,
housing.
Mary? Can I
Okay,
answer?
okay.
Can I answer?
Yes.
I mean, maybe I'm speaking too deliberately, but I want to be understood. We'll start with goal 1. There'll be middle housing. I think goal 5 is something people are very interested in. So that includes significant natural resources and historical preservation ideas. But we'll be open to all the goals and see if there are issues with some of the other goals, and keep a list of them. We will develop a list as our first task says, develop a list of issues. And what we work on depends on what the interest is, but we definitely are starting with goal 1. And some of what we had here, particularly something in the first, the upper paragraph, which was to provide feedback from DLU, to look at exactly how the neighborhood meetings and public notices are working. We want to gather information about that and see if there's something that we want to say about it, or that as we take it to this committee, as we take it to the CCI. Go ahead, Mary. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done. Thank you, Jim.
That's a good conversation. Virginia, what do you have?
There's a definite building force in the state and with the governor and other forces to expedite the production of housing. And a lot of those people see community involvement as sand in the machine that slows down the process.
Yep.
And I hope that this committee can address that as the elephant in the room, and work on ways that community can be involved. So that, I see some stuff coming out of the state legislature and the governor's office, basically trying to dismantle the land use goals, and particularly attacking goal one. I've seen stuff that says we need to rewrite this. So I hope this committee can keep, the eyes of reality on the situation and address those issues.
Well, yeah, Virginia, I think we'll probably get out in front of the tractors and the graders before they get started. We'll probably, chain ourselves to the trees so that they can't do anything. Okay, all seriousness aside, I think that we can address some of these. Now, even last year, when the Housing Production Advisory Committee was meeting last fall, I testified there. And before I testified, the woman before me, who was from Salem, she said, Tina Kotek said when she was campaigning for office that she wasn't going to change the land use laws. And here it is, it looks like she's changing the land use laws.
Exactly.
So I was advocating for the citizen involvement, as you've heard me do many times. And unfortunately, I couldn't attend all of the Housing Production Advisory Committee meetings to follow up on that. But yes, Virginia, it would be nice if we were effective at the committee level and then at the CCI level to do something that's going to make a difference. I don't know what that is yet.
Well, some of it needs to be a change in perception, I think, of the housing community, realtors and developers, just not wanting the citizens to get involved because we slow things down.
Well, the Housing Production Advisory Committee was loaded with developers. It was
right.
with people who knew how to leverage financing to make things happen. So it was overburdened that way. So we're fighting an uphill battle in that sense.
We sure are.
Okay, continuing on. Where was I? 2, 3, 4.
You'd gotten through the whole thing, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, we've gotten through the whole thing. Anyway, I would expect that any of the things like 5 and 6, engaging with state associations, that we would have the okay of the CCI to do that before we did it. It would be nice to be able to do stuff without having to come to the CCI, but I'm pretty sure that all of you folks would like to see and hear exactly what we're looking at doing. So if that needs to be worded differently, let me know.
Well,
I mean, we'd like to slow things down.
Well, no, yeah, right. So I think that the S&R subcommittee has been doing a really good job of balancing taking action and keeping the larger CCI apprised. So I kind of expect that would continue. Mary Lou, what do you have?
I just have a question about what is year-end data?
Well, if you
what
read our bylaws, we are supposed to be creating an end of the year report for the county commissioners on our work. And it's always bothered me that I've never gotten around to writing, or we've never got around to writing a year-end report on what we've done. And so that year-end mention there is acknowledging that the CCI has an obligation, whether we carry it off or not, to give a report on what we've done.
But this is the new committee, right?
Yeah.
And so what do you envision year-end data?
How many different bills did we comment on? How many different actions did we take? Was there testimony in front of the Board of County Commissioners, or were there letters to the county, to staff or county commissioners, or just what in single bullet fashion, what was accomplished? I mean, you could certainly, looking back at last year, say that we provided the impetus for the county to pull off the significant natural resource analysis, producing ordinances 901 and 902. I mean, that would be the
Well,
high.
I'm just trying to figure out uh what what helpful data we would come up with that would be submitted. I just,
What we did, it's like
no,
a
I
status
mean,
report.
with this new committee, I'm trying to think
Well,
of what they will.
this committee is part of the larger CCI, and the CCI should be producing a year-end report of what we did. And I've been lax in not pushing me to do that. But
Well,
when we
that's
do it,
fine, but I mean, I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to talk about what we could have done. What I'm trying to figure out is this particular committee, what would be really helpful data that we would come up with that would be tallied and be included in a report to the CCI and the
well,
county
tallied in this
commission.
case would mean that there was a bullet point describing the thing that was accomplished. I mean, it's just a list of accomplishments. And when Melissa Laird, who was on the budget committee this year, went to the equity office and said, "What has the CPO and CCI done?" Looking at the high level funding the office for the CPO program, AICA. ICA did a very good job in providing high level bullets of what we did. So we need, if we want to be respected, we need to have a record of the things that we have done.
Okay, so
Oh,
the things that are under here then develop a list of issues. Okay,
okay, Mary Lou, can I interrupt for a quick second? The second paragraph there, which is a little bit different from what actually I'm reading my second paragraph. The land use subcommittee will study processes for public notification of development applications, citizen involvement in planning, review and vetting by CPOs and or neighborhood meetings, and the resultant feedback to DLUT and its responses. So I would expect our committee to contact both LUT and CPOs and gather information about how many development applications they had actually looked at. And I know historically there have been some CPOs that don't really look at land use,
Right.
or they rarely do.
oh,
Our CPO pretty much focuses on it. So there's some variation there, and it's just a matter of looking and seeing. I mean, there's CPOs that meet at different times. Some CPOs meet quarterly, others meet bi-monthly, and others more often. So there's information like that to put together. But it's that second paragraph of of this of this form that covers some of that.
well, that was my main thing is I was trying to understand what would go into what would be considered data, year-end data, and it's these goals, I guess.
With the year-end accomplishments.
I guess, yeah.
Well, that's what when I wrote that word, that I mean, I kind of took that from the original document, but year-end is what did we do? And that would be part of the larger CCI report on what the overall CCI did.
Yeah.
And CPOs.
And CPOs, yeah.
I mean, that's really what we're going to be looking at is the local level of how many development applications were there. Did the CPOs get the notifications on time? Were they able to review them? There's lots of questions like that that some of our committee members have that we want to highlight and
Well,
see if we
see,
can
that's
improve the processes that the county is using.
right. Well, that's what I deal with tree keepers. That's my job.
Uh-huh.
It's I follow development and I try to go to as many neighborhood meetings as I can and or send somebody else if I can't attend. And it just annoys the heck out of me that there aren't any neighborhood meetings for middle housing. So,
Yeah, there aren't. That's, I think, a real flaw in the system, but it
well,
could
I know,
be.
I know it's supposed to speed things up. It's supposed to create housing faster, but I don't know if it is, and it just uh, it to me it's just wrong not to notify the neighbors. It, you know.
Well, then that's what this subcommittee will work on angles of
Yeah.
arguing for.
Yeah.
Okay, as you know, I put together a letter back in January, and it did get out, but essentially stressing that this committee is interested in supporting and encouraging neighborhood meetings and public notices so that citizens can be involved. That's what we're supposed to be doing, is involving. So
Yep.
we, you know, you were very active on our significant natural resources committee. I hope you join our land use committee,
Yeah.
and we can go through this. I mean, we'll have a big agenda. I mean, we'll probably have something about goals. We'll probably have something about significant natural resources and something
Yeah.
about middle housing on every agenda. So we can add to it and develop the list and see how we want to approach it.
And I like that model personally, as gathering the different land use functions that the CPI projects that the CCI works on and having it kind of in one group because there's cross-pollination between subcommittees and people with interests. And so by keeping the subcommittees separate, you don't really, people don't, um, uh, there's more synergy if people who have interest in multiple committees are able to discuss them in one context.
Yeah, I agree, Bruce. And there was something that I saw on what was maybe the original uh, draft that you put out about transportation not being part of this.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if we have issues about transportation, we will compile that list of issues. You know, if
Yeah.
if there is an active transportation subcommittee, that's fine. They can get that from us. But we will also be looking at transportation issues because they are totally relevant to traffic, livability, uh, environment, significant natural resources, everything. So I look at it as something to look at. You know, I don't see it to be it quite well. I'm going to shut up.
Well, no, I mean it's a kind of complex situation. And it could be that the transportation subcommittee would then be part of well, let me, for an example, the Beaverton CCI has a general membership meeting, and then at sort of partway through their meeting, they break into subcommittees of interest, and then they come back and they report. And so this is kind of like our collection of subcommittees that then um, um, I sort of, this is our collection of subcommittees that will work collaboratively on land use issues. And for example, the communications subcommittee of the Washington County CCI would not be part of the land use subcommittee. So getting all of the land use stuff in one general grouping so that the synergies are recognized and the cross-pollination is there seems like where this is going. And personally, I like that idea. Mary, you got your hand up.
I do. So I really like the idea of having a year-end report to talk about accomplishments because, not only the questions that were asked of the budget committee about, where the money is being spent, we need to move beyond the butts in seats. And I think in many ways, OEICE thinks that all the CPOs do is hold their monthly meetings. And there is so much beyond that monthly meeting that it's really the bulk of our work. And I think having it reported out is really important.
Okay, well, it's interesting, and it's something that we, as a CCI, could have and should have perhaps been doing over every year. But what I want to start with here now goes back to some emails that from last August with with Bruce and Robert Bailey and myself about this issue. And I want to give Robert credit for pushing this forward a bit. And part of his motivation was to help the county avoid appeals, costly appeals, and just big more transparency to everything. If we're successful that way, there's more citizen involvement, and they actually listen. Now that's another question: how are we going to measure whether DLUT listens to us or whether the Board of Commissioners listens to us, and how they listen and what actions they take from it? So that's part of the unknowns at this point.
Okay, so I think we're not, are we, I mean, the work is being done. I think it's worth it to refine the defining document so these things are a little more clear. So bringing it back for sort of hopefully a final discussion in July is what I would suggest.
I would suggest putting a motion to approve forming a land use subcommittee at this point, and that could be one of our tasks, is to look at this.
I'm good with that.
Look at this work program, and we have limited volunteer abilities.
No kidding.
So we have to do what's possible. It's the art of the possible, which has been the theme of my life for 50 years. You can only do what you have time to do.
That's so true.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve formation of a CCI land use subcommittee to perform issues related to statewide land use goals.
Any discussion or a second?
I seconded.
Moved and seconded. Jill, what do you got? Oh, was that?
Sorry, I was
Oh,
voting.
you were voting in favor. Okay, got it. Any discussion? Anybody want to say anything? Okay, now race to your things and raise your hand if you're voting for it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Jim and Robert are voting yes, I presume.
Is Robert actually a member of CCI?
No.
We should get some representatives from Save Helvetia.
Yeah.
But I think Save Helvetia needs to talk about doing that.
Okay.
I've discussed it with our board, and we are in support.
There is a what's it called? Member at large.
Yeah, no, community of interest
Community of
representative.
interest. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that
So,
Robert, is that what you discussed with the board, or formation of this subcommittee is what you discussed with the board?
Well, formation of the subcommittee on land use, and we have discussed community of interest for some time. We're the only affiliate of 1,000 Friends in the county. We track land use across the county. We collaborate with other land use groups in the county.
and that's Save Helvetia, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that you would qualify as a community of interest. The question is Bruce, is there a formal form to fill out? And
I will look into that. I made a note. That's something I need to.
I think
so I'm going.
Save Helvetia needs to determine who they want to have as their representative.
So I will send two things to Jim and Robert. The current draft of the land use subcommittee formation, and something about the community of interest, identifying yourself. And we need to check to see if Tree Keepers is actually cleanly. I'm not sure. I mean, we're ad hoc volunteers, for heaven's sakes, and so most of the officialness is, are you doing anything? And if you're doing something, then you're official. But we should be even more formal, I guess.
I think, what needs to be formalized is has the group really said this is who we want as our representative. And unfortunately, the way the bylaws are written, CPOs have alternates. Communities of interest do not have alternates. But, when we update bylaws, that would be a good thing to address.
Yeah, and so it's kind of academic in a way that if you're doing the work, you're on the subcommittee. So, but I would like to formalize the inclusion of other groups into our organization. So I will come up with something for a community of interest form and make sure that Tree Keepers kind of is in that same. I think Tree Keepers did something like that, or maybe it was Fran.
We
It
have
was
some people
Fran.
with their hands raised. Can we-
Okay, Ben, what do you got?
Sorry, didn't put it down.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, well,
Okay, I think we've covered this very well. Thank you for this good conversation. We covered a lot of good points, and I think
what was the final tally?
um 8, 9 in favor. And anybody opposed? Okay. Cool. Okay. So next up is the CPO Modernization Project Executive Summary. And I will share this.
So Bruce, also full disclosure, this has been bouncing around for a while. And we've had who look at it? You and I and
Battery very low.
did well, Virginia had a look at it. Did Fran look at it as well?
Yes. Okay. And to be honest, I haven't when we published the response to the 5 guidelines back in, I think it was February, I've not gotten any real response from any CCI members on it, although there's a lot of detail in it about the responses to the 5 guidelines. And so in an effort to get anybody to read anything and pay any attention, and also to make the report more digestible for our intended audience of the new office and the commissioners, Mary and I agreed that an executive summary would help. And so this reflects what is in the full report, which is now published with links from the agenda to this meeting. But the executive summary points out that we have been working on modernizing the CPO program for 10 years now. And there was a lot of energy that went into the initial transition report. And then we've spent significant time over the last 3 or 4 years trying to engage a moving target. And
It hasn't moved much.
Huh?
A moving target that hasn't moved much.
It's changing from the re-envisioning to the modernization was a big step. Ayla, did you have your hand up for something I wanted to? So here is the executive summary. We talk about the modernized language. It's just what we're doing. The updated scope is like what is it that we do that did not meet the approval of the CAO's office? And my sense is that the 5 guidelines came from the CAO's office, not from the OAICE department per se. I mean, it came through OAICE, but it didn't originate. It originated somewhere in the CAO's office. Membership and eligibility, we summarize what's in the report. And there potentially is things there that will generate some discussion. The program requirements, and the geography and CPO boundaries, which the more you look at the boundaries of the CPOs and having an effective system, the more complex the equation gets. It's not a simple thing at all. So more than reviewing this in real time right now, I wanted you all to have it in front of you so you could read it. And the links there do take you to the underlying documents. So this guides an interested reader in pursuing the subject. And since the equity office, by whatever name they're going by now, put the project on hold, we're just reviewing our kind of thoughts at this time and not having any idea what will happen this fall when the county re-engages the project.
So Bruce, it isn't so much reviewing our thoughts. It's they really haven't asked us. They did the open house where they just threw it out to the community, but they never really reached out to the leadership to say, what do you think about our 5 guidelines? And I think it's really important for us to draw a line in the sand and say, these are where we stand as CCI. And we had hoped that this information would get distributed enough before the meeting tonight that people would actually have a chance to review. But I suspect that nobody's really taken time to look at it until just now.
And yes, and I'm partly responsible for that.
Yeah, but we are where we are, and
yeah.
I'm tired of we've been working on this since January, and it just ends up not going anywhere. But it would be really nice to know that other CCI members actually approve of the position that we have, or to enter into a conversation to say, no, this is not where we need to go. This is not the direction.
Exactly. Jim, you had your hand up.
I muted myself there for a while too. I agree with Mary that the county needs to reach out a bit better, but I do want to say that I started months ago working up an in my opinion about this so that I can convey my opinion on all these things, and I haven't had time to finish it. But now that there's this executive summary, it'll be easier. I can address specific things. I think my opinion will be probably too much for a newspaper to print, but maybe I can whittle it down. But I'll probably have a lot of opinions. So I'm not ready to share that right now.
Fair enough.
But that's the direction I'm moving, because you've heard me talk for years about the conflicts of interest that are involved here. And of course, I was part of the transition committee, part of the upgrade, part of this and that. So I've seen it. And I actually was working for the county back in the 70s when they first started these. So I can tell you guys who your first CPO leaders were that helped put together the comprehensive plans to begin with. So anyway, my point is, this is going to take a while.
It is.
I'll bring some of this to the land use committee because some of them are issues that I want to see if other people agree with it or whatever.
Well, good. Thank you. Eric, nice to see you in the meeting. What do you got?
Hopefully somebody can wave or acknowledge that they can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. I want to be brief with these comments. Thank you. I heard a comment about this process going back 10 years, and I'd like to make sure that, just for the record, I really feel like personally and previously as being involved in CPO6, we got sold a bill of goods um, during the Aloha Reedville study and the related CV highway study and the West Side Transportation Future study. Mike Dahlstrom, who's a super neat guy, was on point for the Aloha Reedville study, and we were told that he was going to change the CPO program and it would not look anything that was even recognizable. So prior to this 10-year horizon, I've been hearing about a CPO reinvigoration for maybe 15 years now. And particularly the last couple of years have been, well, I've been waiting to see what's happening, and it looks like nothing happened. And essentially, I want to close this remark out with this, is that there's an accountability that needs to happen here. Is like, what's going on? And I think that's a really direct question that needs to really be completely answered, because our tax dollars are at play. And I think it's a really fair question. Those are remarks. Thank you for entertaining them. Have a great evening, folks.
Well, thank you, Eric. As always, you have cogent observations. Virginia, what do you got?
Well, I made a comment about this that I see didn't get incorporated, and I just wanted to mention it under the membership part of this statement.
Yeah.
That an explicit statement that because we sometimes criticize the county government and LUT, that it's a conflict of interest to be appointed by the county commission. And I would have kind of liked to see that explicit statement in there. It's it's part of our existential.
You're surmising that it's a conflict of interest. I don't see that it necessarily follows that however the membership gets approved, that we have a conflict of interest if we're working for the well-being of the people that live here.
If we're appointed by the commission, then then we're beholden to them for our membership in the group. And if we oppose them, where does that leave us?
Well, that leaves us as members of the group that oppose something the county is doing, whether it's a vigorous opposition or it's a constructive opposition. That's what public participation is. And if somebody was doing ad hominem attacks on an elected official or staff, that would cross the line. But the significant natural resource work, I think, epitomizes one of the most potent objections that I've seen levied against the county that has had success.
Well, do you think those people would get appointed by the board?
I would.
I wouldn't.
Well, you got to think that that you can't mute citizen voices and have an effective group or withstand the blowback from not doing it. So, duly noted. I wouldn't put in there that there is a conflict of interest. I would say that there are potential conflicts that could happen. But we work through conflicts as a consequence of getting along together. So, are you good for the moment, Virginia?
I hear you.
Okay, Stan, what do you got?
I'm trying to find this that you sent, and I can't find it.
It was linked from the agenda that the county sent out. So if you've got your Washington County notice, there's a link in there.
Yeah, underneath the 745 CPO modernization project.
Okay, so I got that, this thing 2 days ago.
Yeah, the previous one was bad. The one
Yeah.
that was sent out today has a correct link.
Right. So, I got a few things I have to do in a day, and this is just too damn fast to
What?
try to do
Okay.
anything with.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, now we all have access to the same document, and I expect each of you to do your homework and send in something to CCI leaders at gmail.com, either supporting or criticizing this.
Homework.
So let me finish my point.
Okay.
Bruce, when something is critical for us to look at, why don't you send it directly to us with important, necessary to review immediately, something, so I know to look at something in versus a draft in an email from the county that's got all kinds of
Other
links
stuff.
without saying this is important.
Okay, duly noted. And Ika and I have a check-in this week, and we'll discuss how to best contact all the CCI members in one swoop. And you're right, that is something that would be, I think that would improve the process a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a little bit of time and just looking at the bit that you just showed, there are a lot of links there to try to follow all of what is being addressed here.
Yeah.
You need more than an hour or two.
I agree. And I was a little chagrined that
Okay.
it was late, and then the first one had bugs in it. But here we are, and like I said, now we have another month before the next meeting with something that we all can refer to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Ayla, what do you got?
Yeah, hi, thanks. I just wanted to apologize first for being so late, and so glad you're still here. When I did read it over, I haven't read all of your, extended follow-up links, but one of the statements that stood out to me was you said that there wouldn't necessarily be a majority of people adverse to appointed positions.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't really, that assumption troubled me. We don't know that for sure. And I think that when I was at the meeting, we talked about this topic, there was significant pushback on it. So I think that's an assumption that might be a little bit premature.
I would agree with you, and that's why I put the section about other positions, because once we actually have the details from the CAO's office, what are their requirements in front of us, we'll be able better to vote as a group. And so as we come up with our response, there will be things that we will need to discuss and vote on as a group, and this is one of those.
And CAO meaning
the county administration office.
you're talking about ICA's department.
Well, the
Or
Tanya
farther up the
Angie,
chain.
Tanya Angie. The membership requirements did not originate in ICA's department. They originated, I'm sure, in the county administration office, and they were dictated to to ICA's department. So I mean, this is part of the, frankly, in my personal opinion, it was a sloppily prepared set of guidelines that really raised more questions than it addressed. And this is one of those questions that it raised but didn't really address. We haven't had a stable group. I mean, Amanda left before she actually had to deal with the ramifications of making these proposals. So now we're suspended for another 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, and furthermore, people keep forgetting that this is a grassroots organization, and we start from the bottom up. And we should be voting and deciding for ourselves what membership looks like and informing the county of how we want to structure the way we function. We are not their narrative outreach program. And from past experience in this entire state, when people start appointing folks in leadership positions as opposed to them being chosen by those that they are leading, there is an agenda and an expectation to follow a certain pathway. And it gets political, and it shouldn't be political, but it is. And that is going to do nothing but breed politics if you go down the appointed path instead of being chosen by the people in your neighborhoods. So still sticking with that.
So I think you and Virginia both enunciated that really well. And there is a larger conversation to be had once we know that somebody at the county will actually listen to us. I mean, we can certainly put together our position, but at the end of the day, the CPO program is the county's program to do with as it pleases, as much as that is frustrating. I mean, thank you. And so, but you and Virginia certainly laid out the conundrum.
So Bruce, I absolutely agree with Isla. You apparently made changes to the document that I did not catch.
Okay.
Because one of the things I had suggested, which I think is going to be controversial, is actually splitting the responsibility of CCI. And I'd suggested that maybe there should be a group that is called CCI that evaluates public engagement and evaluates all public engagement activities at the county level. And then there needs to be a second group that is the leadership of the CPOs. I believe if they have a CCI committee that is just evaluating public engagement, I believe that's something that could be appointed by the board. But the leadership of the CPO programs in no way can be appointed by the board. And
okay. So you have your
I think we
homework
need to
assignment.
talk more about, splitting the responsibility. Is that something that people could stomach? And that way there'd be a partial win for those that want to have an appointed board.
So the link to the current full analysis is provided in the agenda. So I would welcome anybody with mild or hard comments to write the damn things up and send them in. Let's get this show on the road and really.
I tried to, Bruce. I tried to.
Hmm.
And then you
You
cut me off
did.
at the knees.
All of your comments went in to the last draft, for heaven's sakes. And we got some stuff from CPO 6 and from CPO 7. So let's, this is our document with our response. And so let's make it that.
Yeah, Mary, I'm curious to know this liaison for communication. Tell me, how does that look? Like, why isn't the department that Ike is in, for example, doing that? To me, it seems like that is their hat to wear, that they look at public engagement and they assess and change and stay on top of it as the needs evolve. But I'm curious to know, what would that look like?
Part of that is embedded in goal 1, because goal 1 identifies CCI and the role of CCI as evaluating public engagement in land use decisions. And we, as a CCI, have never really done that. I think it's something that really does need to be done. You need the public oversight rather than having staff make decisions about what is the best way to communicate. It's simple things like LUT when they run their open houses. Our CPO system is set up on a monthly basis with the agenda going out once a month. Why can't they run open houses for a full month when they're virtual? Oh, well, no, you can't do that because industry standard is only, 2 weeks. It's like, it may be the industry standard, but how our system is set up, we really need that month to then announce those in our newsletters or at our meetings. And it's things like that I'm not sure that staff would think about. And that's why I think it's really important.
Or they do think about it on purpose, and it's done for a reason. Like I'm sorry.
You think our staff is evil.
I hate to be the bad penny, but for example, for our next meeting, I'll be writing it up, and then I'll be taking it to the board. But what they've done in testimonial procedure and guidelines now is absolutely intolerable. They've completely wiped out any place for a group to speak to the board. It's still written for the Planning Commission, but Chair Harrington took it all out. There's no avenue for groups to speak. And here's an example of what I would want that committee to do then. I think the board needs to have once a month, preferably the evening meeting, so that people at work can show up, that there is a place there on their agenda all the time, CPO, and it's a 10-minute block, and we know it's always there for us, so that we can do our notifications like you're speaking of. We have a whole month to plan and know who's going to talk for the 10 minutes and who they represent. And we always know that we're guaranteed our 10 minutes. And in fact, I'd bump it to 15 so that we can have 3 people speak 5 minutes. That goes really fast. And for all the work we put in, like this draft and all the things we do, we should have 15 minutes once a month to the board that is guaranteed our block, no matter what the topic is.
That certainly would be a worthy request.
Because we are completely unrecognized. And they shut me down, told me I couldn't yield my time. I couldn't have our guest speaker speak on behalf of my CPO, even though I went to the trouble of getting a vote by my board, talking to Kevin Moss days in ahead of time to make sure I was doing everything right. Ike even talked to me about it and gave me some clarification, and it kept kind of evolving that it had to be about a ordinance or a public hearing for a CPO person to speak, which I went, what? If I'm bringing you an important issue, it shouldn't have to be under those pretenses. If I've taken the time, if my people have taken the time, like when we SNR land use committee brings something to them, they need to just listen to us for our 15 minutes. And if we're going to be if we're going to be the county's CPO program, then show me where you're making me part of the program.
Well, except for I think what the powers to be, I think they'd just like the CPO programs to be an avenue for them to present information to the public. They really don't want us to have opinions.
You're absolutely right, Mary. And I'm sorry that this is the truth.
Well, so we are working on defining the new community participation system. And I find it interesting that the LCDC's Committee for Citizen Involvement Advisory Committee there's a bill that gives it until 2029 to come up with its Goal 1 revisions. That seems like a heck of a long way off in the distance from my point of view. I would like to see our process used as a trial for what we could recommend going statewide with.
Not
I
if we're
like
cut
that.
off at the knees.
Well, if we are doing this at the pleasure of the elected officials, and there's just no getting around that criteria. And
It's
so,
8:15.
That's why
It's
we have to
8:15,
build.
Bruce. Agenda time check. It's 8:15.
yes,
We should be done with this topic.
okay, let's do that. That brings us to the, oh my gosh, to the subcommittee reports. Anything from the significant natural resources to weigh in on?
Well, I don't know. I'm on the committee. I don't know, not a summary from our committee work itself, but I will say that I had a very great turnout at our Oregon Water Resources Department presentation. And Bruce, you were there.
Yeah, it was a wonderful presentation. It was really well put together.
It was a little bit scientific and they ignored some of the things I requested, but it's okay. It was a start. And water is a part of land use. So here we go.
And rural water is different than city water for sure. Um,
Yes, big differences in issues.
so I learned one of the things I took away was that when you put a well in that's in a river basin, you change the flow of the river when you extract water from the well that's associated with that water. Um, and it was a really informative, it was like Ayla said, it was a scientific oriented thing about a highly emotional subject. How do you use your water and under what circumstances can you not use it? It's
Who did
fascinating.
the presentation?
Is the presentation, are those presentations available?
No, who did them?
She said Oregon Water Resources Department out of Salem. They're the big dogs. And, they're watching all the legislation. There's 124 bills in Salem right now going through the long session, all with the word water in them. So it's overwhelming. And they are making big changes. Some of them appear to be helpful, but there's suspicion there's some long-term goals they're going to meter everybody's well, and they will be controlling your water usage on your own land. So we're, hesitant, but
Oh, so did you answer whether or not we can get a copy of those presentations?
yes, we can get the PowerPoint. Yes, we can. I can get the
Wonderful.
entire thing. Yes.
I,
Several people
I,
requested it.
great. I'd like to share that with,
Yeah.
well,
And so
everybody.
that part, I'll say, wrap it up by saying that was considered groundwater technology, and the next one we'll do will be surface water, which is a whole different bag of tricks with irrigation rights, etc. Maybe
Thank
in
you for
October,
pursuing
November.
that. I think that's really germane. So Mary Lou, what do you got?
Well, I want to rattle Jim. I don't know why he's not responding.
He's busy. He's got things to do.
Oh, I know, but his
Yep.
name's on here, but I
Yeah.
don't understand why he isn't responding to the significant natural resource.
Well, can we go back? Can we move forward with the other subcommittee
Yeah. I mean,
reports?
I wouldn't expect there
Oh,
would
there
be
he
a
is.
lot
There
of
he is.
SNR stuff going on right now
Jim.
after the victory of doing 901 and 902.
Okay, I've got a detailed notes from our meeting last week.
Thank you.
If you want to put them up on the screen, we could do that. But part of the big news Fran started with was that the tree keepers were able to help get an urban forestry grant, and there will be 2 professors from Oregon State University working on that in Washington County. On our segment on wildlife seen or heard, we had downy woodpeckers, flickers, scrubray, Steller's jay, lesser finch, goldfinch, coyotes, moles, groundhogs, robins, sparrows, rabbits, deer, squirrels, raccoons, beavers, green herons, great blue herons, tadpoles, other woodpeckers, and the surprise from Banks was a 700-pound bear.
On my property. Woohoo!
Okay, so we talked about the revised CCI land use subcommittee form that we did, and that just got approved, so that's fine. We talked about middle housing, the Sunset West, there's 70 units near Bethany. We talked about that. The property is smack in middle of an SNR near Tualatin Hills Park and Rec District. Trees are gone. That's one of my bold things. Trees are gone there. And another bold I had here was maybe we need legal help to handle some of these things. So there was 70 units. I'm not an expert on it, but and then there's an appeal on Cooper Mountain. And I guess I'd ask Nancy, what was the tenor of the appeal public hearing today in Hillsborough?
He held it open.
He kept it open?
Yeah, he kept it open. So they asked for him to keep it open. So it'll be, I have some dates on that. I think I put it in my notes anyway, on my laptop, but I think it was like the 24th of June. So the more public comments can be made. And then it was like July 1st for the county to make their responses. And then I think it was July 8th was the very last day that would be for the applicant to respond if they want to, or they can waive. So basically, it's coming down to the 902, it's the state law regarding illegal lots. That's really what this was. This first step is not about the development, which is small. All of what we're talking about, it's really a small development. We're talking just a small amount of houses and just the beginning of an SNR lot, where it's all forest and there's development on the other side. But it might make a difference as to what they do in the future. So that's why, and they did get Ken Dobson involved, the HOA, and so that basically one of the lots had no access. So they created 3 new lots, but they're only looking at sold. And of these 2 lots, one had no access to it. And so they had to create an easement on another one. So they had, anyway, there's some arguments. It's a far fetch. So the next step, and the part that Ken would really get involved in, is when they move forward with trying to approve the development and the SNR. So that's where I'll keep everybody, I mean, we do it the SNR, but it is interesting. I don't know what the outcome will be, but it's baby steps getting there. And I got assigned to go to the county and get some additional documents, I guess for Ken, because I'm not privy, I'm not the client, but the HOA president and I work very close together. So I'm going to keep helping whatever I can do to help them. So it'll be interesting.
I have 2 questions, Nancy. One, who was an advocate for keeping the hearing open?
That would be the appellant. So the HOA group that appealed, and they picked a spokesperson, and it's a woman whose backyard backs up to this whole SNR land, and she's a really good speaker. She's very.
And could you boil down the issue? Is it the buildable or unbuildable? Is it the what are the words for that?
It's
division.
It's what it is unlawfully created lots. So they didn't follow the process that's required by the county to do a lot division, a land division. So they never followed the process for a land division. They overrode that and they just used deeds. And this is back in the 90s when they originally were created. It was all one great big lot, and they, made smaller lots out of them. And so they, didn't follow the land division process that they were supposed to follow. But the way the law, the CDC on it, 216.5 or -1 or something, it was 216. The way it reads is the question was, could it have followed? I mean, if they did follow it, could they have been legally created lots? And that's what they kind of go off from. Had they done the right thing, could they have been? And so now they have to do a process to get them there. But county concluded that they could have been. And so
Wow.
I mean, that is just because I got to tell you, everything else is a type one. They have it as a type one development, middle housing development. And the reason being that they're using the old SNR map. And there's a whole, I don't know if people really want to hear all this because it could take a lot of time, but the county allows 180 days, and there's laws behind that, which, I've done a lot of comments on it, so I dug into the details. But they were allowed 180 days from the time they initially said, "Hey, we want to do a land development. Here's our money for the fees." And so that's questionable if that would qualify. So there's some of that going on. But meanwhile, they're using the old SNR lot a map, and the portion that they're wanting to develop this first go around, because there'll be more, it's only on what is non-SNR land. So it's outside of the mapped boundary on the old map, but it's fully inside the new one. So and it's a type one, like I said, so we're not supposed to be able to comment or appeal it. And that's got my fur up. And because I did my comments and the county did respond and said, thank you for your comments. So they accepted my comments. And when it comes down to it, I think they'd let us appeal it, even if it's a type one, even though we have some county people saying you can't. But I'll tell you that the planner told me I could, so Paul Schaefer told me when I went in person, he says, you can still comment and even appeal it. That's what he said. And then his bosses are saying you can't. So we'll see. I mean, if that happens, I mean, like I said, the HOA has Ken. So,
Okay, next question is, can you talk a little bit about the drainage hazard area?
yes, because it is mapped in the drainage hazard area. The whole area is, including the development. I have development going on like on both sides of where I live, this hillside. And it doesn't, my initial review of that code, the requirements do not have appeared to have been followed on the development that's already kind of in where they're building the homes already. But there might be mitigating, there might be little, like if exceptions, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There may be exceptions, or there may be something that's, you know, not just your simple standards. There may be more to the story that I have not yet learned, but that I was raising for this SNR area because it may not, the old map, it may not be in the SNR on the old map, but it is certainly in the drainage hazard area, 100%. Even the part of the development that's current, the subdivision that was put in the 90s, part of it's in the drainage hazard area. So that would be the argument, is that you have to follow, and they agreed. County provided a map with the drainage hazard, actually going back and forth with me over the old SNR and new SNR. I gathered maps, the old maps from the neighbors that people bought their houses, years ago or whatever. Anyway, and in the end, we found that the part that was different between what they were giving us and what we thought the SNR map was, the old map, it ended up being drainage hazard area. And they did conclude that drainage hazard would apply. So
Thank
those are
you.
just things, yeah, that it goes on and on.
Okay,
It's small.
very good.
Thank you,
Jim, do you get?
Nancy. Let me continue the significant natural
Well,
resources.
we have David White from the attendees. Do you have a comment about the subject we just talked about?
Jeremy, my name is David White. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My comment is much broader than the conversation you just had. I've never, ever attended one of your meetings. I'm watching just to see if you bring up a topic that is absolutely important in Washington County. And I just want to see if it comes up. I'm dealing more with CPO 7, but I have to comment on your meeting structure. A woman just talked. I have no idea who she is. Some guy named Paul Lang or John Lang or Tommy Jan just talked. He doesn't show up on the screen. There are 6 of you on the screen, and and I have been involved in this kind of stuff for my entire career. And this is very, very, very difficult for me, a common citizen, to follow. So if you could find some way to at least introduce yourself, maybe put pictures of people who are speaking on this thing, we citizens might have some chance of following you. That's my only comment. This seems very unstructured and very difficult to follow unless we're part of your group. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. And I agree. Part of the issue is the county requires us to use a Zoom webinar format, which creates the the structure of the meeting that you're seeing as an attendee. The panelists see a more complete view, and I find, and I log in as an attendee just to see what non-members see, and it really is a kind of stark and frustrating and alienating kind of situation. So I'm not surprised that you feel that way. And the CCI steering committee meets tomorrow, and we'll discuss alternative ways of presenting the meetings to attendees. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you, David. Can I continue with the SNR committee?
Yes, ma'am.
Other topics we talked about was maybe we need legal help to fight the oversight if we need to appeal. Fawn suggested she encouraged us to connect with Thousand Friends of Oregon because they might be able to provide some legal assistance without charge. Under new business, Ayla had a great thing. She said there's a 125-page document defining county's ability to use, quote, home rule, unquote. We need a county arborist. So we're working that. The urban forestry people might help us along with that if that's something that actually works for us. So the conservation laws are pretty strict. They cut out people, there are complaints. The county should have an overlay over cities as far as SNRs. We talked about the Portland Golf Club, what's happening with that a bit. And we talked about the lights contaminating the night skies for animals, which happens in cities and in rural areas. So I will stop there. Ayla's already talked about the hydrology agenda they had at CPO 14 in Banks. Thank you.
Thank you. Ayla, so yeah, what do you got?
Just real quick, thank you, David, for being here. We really appreciate your perspective on things. And I will add that Banks City is now being required by SHPO, with the help of Grand Ron, to do archaeological inspection of a tax lot where they wanted to push 7 feet of dirt off of an entire acre without going through any concern of what might have been there before. And we're also looking for, we need a county arborist in Banks for 100-year-old Porter sequoias. So there's ongoing things where cities are involved in our CPOs, and that's one of the big things that still needs to be addressed in the future, is that the cities do belong to our CPOs and vice versa. And David, thanks for all the input you've given us in the past regarding those things. We hope that we can build upon it, and we certainly.
You got muted all of a sudden.
I would like to see everybody's CPO after their name, because I don't even know where everybody belongs, and I don't know how to do that after my name. Do we add those things ourselves?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell you what.
Figure
it's in Zoom settings. You go into your settings, and there's a way to determine what the name shows up.
Okay, thank you, Virginia.
And actually, if you click on your image in a gallery, a pop-up menu comes up, and rename is at the bottom of the list.
What?
So, okay, Jim, what do you have?
I just want to point out that the Porter sequoias that Ayla was talking about are the same kind of sequoias that are right next to the Washington County Courthouse in downtown Hillsborough.
And they probably came from the same batch of seedlings that were brought up from California.
Right.
Oh,
You're talking about your great grandpa.
I know. Oh my God. What?
Can anybody guess the county where the jumping frogs come from Mark Twain?
Calaveras, California.
That's where those seeds come from.
Funny.
Cool.
So, Bruce, can we move?
First name.
Yes.
Can we move on to the next?
Well, communications subcommittee, we don't really have much Virginia, do you have anything to say about the communication subcommittee or?
No, we were in the process of working with with ICA
ICA.
on correcting a bunch of stuff, and some of it got done, and then everything fell apart. We had the incorrect Zoom link for the CPO1 meeting, which explains why we didn't have very many people there. And I got feedback from several people who couldn't get into the meeting because it was the CPO7 link. But aside from that, we've just kind of been on hold because communications with what?
Yeah. Okay, very good. Well, the agenda has the land use subcommittee formation discussion on it, but I dare
So,
say we have.
Bruce, what about transportation?
And the transportation subcommittee. Oh, yeah. What about the transportation subcommittee?
Is there a report, or is this a case of
Well,
Kenneth
Nancy,
Pierce,
do you
so-
have anything to say on behalf of the transportation subcommittee?
I don't, because I'm technically not on it. That would
Ah.
be, yeah. Ken Seymour, is leading it, and I haven't been attending the meetings.
I haven't seen any issues that he's brought up that he's included the leadership in.
Is Fran on that?
No.
No, she's just on the county.
So Bruce,
Yes, ma'am.
I was hoping to talk some about the budget.
Let's do. I think that the budget is an entirely good subject to bring up next.
So I believe the board approved it today. I've been trying to get answers about the funding for the CPO program, and I've gotten partial answers and I've gotten more information, but everything I learned concerns me a little bit. So OEICE has now become OAO, so the Office of Access and Opportunity. And I think that actually dovetails with the discussion at the board to cut out any DEI within the county. I think everything is actually just getting renamed. They're still going to be doing diversity, equity, inclusion. It's just under another name. So yeah, OEICE is now OAO, so Office of Access and Opportunity, but OAO actually has 3 program areas within it. It has assessment and opportunity strategic initiatives. The second one is community-centered engagement. And the third one is community participation organization. And unfortunately, they have thrown everything into the community participation organization. It includes not just the CPO and CCI. It also includes funding for ACRE, outreach to boards and commissions, volunteer recruitment and engagement, technology and tools for countywide email communications, tabling at public events, partnerships with community-based organization, professional services, civic leadership training, although they're saying civic leadership training will transition to in-house in the coming year. We're dropping our full-time equivalent staffing from 1.68 FTE from the current year down to 0.93 FTE. Our budget is in the current year $373K, and it's actually increased from the $350K that we used to get when we had 3 community engagement people supporting our CPO. It looks like we're losing Carol, but I haven't gotten confirmation of that. 100,000 of our budget is going to professional service. Over 100,000 is going to professional services, and that was for the civic leadership training. There's another over $100,000 that's going for something that's called miscellaneous personnel services, leaving the rest for 0.93 FTE for our program. You know, there's money in there for food, and I'm sure that's food that is served at ACRE. You know, it really concerns me, and I've been trying to get answers and I'm not getting them. So I'm hoping that we can have Alicia at our next CPO meeting to kind of explain to us what sort of support we can expect in the upcoming year. Because with this reduced budget, they're supposed to finally be doing the modernization of the program. So good luck.
I can't imagine that without hiring a consultant or somebody that that the revamp of the CPO program could be accomplished.
And that may be what that $100,000 is in there for. But you know,
maybe we should take it and divide it and design the program.
Amen.
We all wanted a raise, didn't we?
Yeah, from nothing, anything up from nothing would be good.
Carol
Okay,
are losing?
so there isn't much we can say, and time is getting on. So thank you, Mary, as always.
So
Mary, what is that organization's name again? The old
OAO?
OAO. Oh, what?
Office of Access and
OAO.
Oh,
And it
but
was
that didn't smell as sweet.
it was OEICE.
Yeah.
OEICE.
Yeah.
What's acre?
E-I-E-I-O.
ACRE is the Advisory Committee for Racial Equity.
And they haven't changed their name yet, but I suspect that's coming.
So that segs into an item on today's commission schedule on their agenda, where one of the most incredible things that I've ever witnessed happened, where the equity resolution and the strategic plan got rescinded, and a list, the forbidden words that the executive order of the White House has been analyzed, and 15,000 occurrences of forbidden words appear in county documents.
But Bruce, that was just proposed. They ended up pulling it from the agenda. They did not.
Okay,
they did not vote on that.
Okay, but it is a subject on the table right now,
Yeah.
and it makes my head hurt.
How many words?
15,000 occurrences of words like diversity, equity, or inclusion, or it's an astounding list of words that are forbidden to be.
It's very long. It's very long.
So we should keep this as a backdrop in our minds as we make proposals. I don't know what the net effect would be, but we are dealing with a very charged national situation at this point.
Well, it's about funding.
And then, yes, and if we don't, genuflect correctly, we lose funding. Did I say that? If we don't adhere?
Or if we don't pay attention, we lose funding. And I think that's really what has happened over, the last 10 years is we haven't been demanding our fair share, and we just keep getting squeezed.
Anybody have anything else to add to this discussion?
No, but I have something else to mention.
Okay, go for it.
I am really concerned that other county departments do not realize that the CPO system exists and that it's a really good outreach opportunity to the community. And that's actually why David White is here. He's really concerned about the transitional housing that's going in on Cornell Road. And his neighborhood is quite near. But it's trying to get them to understand that if we can get the information out to the public, it really helps start that two-way conversation. They better understand what the concerns are within the community, but the community also understands what the community is worried about. And one of the things that I fielded recently was there's transitional housing that's on 82nd Avenue in Portland, and apparently it's pods, and it sounds like it's really short term. And this project is way different. That there's people that are aware of what goes on 82nd. They're really worried that that's going to be what's going to be ending up happening in their neighborhood. And what housing has just told us is just calm down. We'll be ready to talk to you in October. And in the meanwhile, go to the county website. and it's like trying to find anything on the county website is like truly the needle in the haystack.
If I had any hair, I'd pull it.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
CPO 7 get any notice of that? The first notice I saw was somebody from the Oak Hills HOA.
Yeah, exactly. And I just keep getting communication from people that seem to find the
Right.
CPO. And I reached out to Ika. It's like, are we really supposed to be answering these questions? And she said, no, forward those on to housing.
Is this the former Phoenix
Homeless
Inn?
services. Yes, yes, that's it
The
exactly.
former Phoenix Inn is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
Getting into, oh my goodness. Yeah, I've been reading about that.
Yeah. Well, but just the idea that they're not willing to meet with us, and with the attitude of, well, it's on the website. It's like, how often do we have LUT come when the information is on the website? It's just another way to keep the public informed.
Yep.
Ayla, what do you got?
I will tell you that, I spent a whole summer fighting pod villages, and the geographic inequity is real. And I serve the commissioners with a pending lawsuit over their pod development because they were putting pod villages where mostly unincorporated, where people didn't even have a city council to fight back for them. And they picked places where people were marginally having any kind of economic benefit from their homes as it was. They were either a mobile home park or elderly people that had been in their homes 35 plus years in Aloha. And so what they did to people's property values is horrific, and they don't care. And they are going to ram this down your throat.
Oh,
and they don't give
it's
proper
happening.
public
It's
notice.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and we will be going to the commissioner meeting, the evening meeting in July, and the Aloha CPO,
Capital C, capital I.
they are going to come and we're going to testify against the pods. I'm going to try to pull up documents from Open House or Open Door that monitors and keeps the stats to find out what it's cost. My one friend Barbara, she keeps track of every police and ambulance call in Aloha, and so we're going to put together as many stats as we can about what it's like living next to a pod village, and testify at the July evening meeting, the 6:30 meeting. So, David, if you want to come and if you're concerned, let's talk some more, because it's a big deal and it's nasty the way they put these in.
This has nothing to do with pods. This is a former hotel.
Well,
it's not next to any residential neighborhood.
There are two subjects.
Next to a church and a freeway.
There are two subjects being discussed.
Yeah. Well, lucky for them, but it's, the church will still suffer, I can tell you. And, they just, if you're going to tell me that that's not going to affect anybody in the neighborhood, I'd be highly suspect.
Right across the street from Oak Hills, for heaven's sakes.
Stan, what do you got?
Order.
Well, with the current state of how things are running through the country, and I'm not talking politically, it's just, there was just this grand effort of community outreach and reaction that the thought I have is, why aren't we promoting our participation in your community through our CPOs at this time? I mean, and I don't mean politically. I'm not talking politically. I'm just talking about the issues, the things that have been trying to get through far longer than I've been here, and I've been here for 10 long years. And I know Jim, yes, 40 longer years. But anyway, it's, I think we aren't taking advantage of the complexion of how people are feeling the way things are being run.
Stan, is
Wouldn't it be nice if
we,
CPO leaders got trained in outreach?
well, but is it we, or does the county not promote our program? I mean, you go to the county website and you'd think we'd be under the bar that says community. No, we're under the bar that says government. Explain that to me.
Right, but I think that is what we need to be pushing. If we're going to do something, now is the time for us to really step up this effort so that we can take advantage of people willing to engage and getting things done.
Well, and a really good example is, you know, why can't we get housing to come in and do a presentation? We had the same issue with Cat. Cat didn't want to come in, the Center for Addiction and Triage. They didn't want to come either. And it's like, yeah, I realize you guys are busy, but you know, it's a really good way to outreach the community.
Yes. So
Afraid of public engagement. They don't want us engaged. They want to do what they want to do.
I think my thought is we need to demand, as Washington County's population representatives, frame it, just phrase it any way you want to. I think this is the time for us to push back and push hard on getting some things that have been lacking since our dear university have departed. And I think now is the time. And I think we have enough. And I think if we scale this, that our CPOs are having this as a discussion, all of our CPOs, and they're going to see what we are trying to accomplish. You know, and we do need to put together something that is effective, reasonable, but effective, that is pronouncing what we are trying to do. I'm getting really, I can't tell you how exhausted I am with how we are just following whatever the county is telling us that we need to revamp something that doesn't need to be revamped. And I think we would do better if we presented what we have always been looking for, that modeled more of OSU and where things were back in the good days, the better days. And even when I came in, it wasn't as good. But if we make that our selling point, I think we could actually do something this time around.
Do you think this should be done through the modernization? You know, who do we strangle? Do we reach out to the board? Do we reach out to the CAO office? Do we reach out to Alicia?
Yes, and
yes.
As long as we're a creature of the county, I don't think we have a future.
Okay, so Stan, you made an excellent point. But we're running out of time, and we will kind of we won't know what the purview of the program will be until the county earnestly engages the process. I mean, you know, and
but we need to let the county know what we're thinking before they engage in the process.
Okay, well, you all have homework assignment to read the executive summary and
is there a deadline?
Next month.
And do we know if
August? If 2 months? I mean, no, haven't been just forthcoming.
July is the drop dead date. We need to absolutely have something out.
Well, Mary, you're really good at giving me deadlines that I have to adhere to, or else I'll have my toenails ripped out. I'll see how that works with the other people in this group.
Could I just add,
You sure can.
we went through the transition from OSU to the county.
We sure
We
did.
had a defined program that we mostly agreed with. Not
We sure
everything,
did.
but we mostly agreed with.
And they just ripped it up and threw it out.
And then that was all tossed. The easiest way to do this is just to go back to that. I'm not trying to go back to OSU because that would be
Right.
way above, beyond their mental capacities and other
Right.
whatever.
What we finally, the transition plan, which we all should be fairly familiar with to have this discussion, was removed from the website, and I just got it put back, and the executive summary references it. So you can see it and the accompanying PSU study.
Okay, so
that
that's the study, is compare what the county is now presenting versus what we were in predominantly agreed upon, and
Yep.
let's compare and contrast and make that our stand.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking stand with a D. But let's do something that represents better than what is being presented right now, because it's so vague and all over the place.
I agree. The 5 guidelines are only the CAO office requirements. They aren't the specifications for the complete system. So one of the things that was added to the analysis is a statement of the outcomes that we expect from the overall effort, which is beyond simply responding to the 5 guidelines. So if you look at those documents, and I want to cut the conversation off here with this, that look at those documents, tear them apart, throw the stuff at me, and we'll digest it together.
Okay.
Okay. David, you had your hand up. Do you have
I do. I have a quick comment. You don't have to tell me to be quick. I know you're winding up. First of all, I have to be amazed that Mary recognized my name. And I've been trying to find out ways, resources to bring the issues from Oak Hills and from my little neighborhood, which is White Fox, and the one next door, which is Skyview, regarding that transitional housing. So, Mary, thank you for recognizing me. And Stan, thank you for bringing up the issue that I absolutely would have commented on. I don't know if you people know it, and I'm going to be really quick, but I took notes, and you have been complaining a lot about the process. And you've said you're completely unrecognized. You need 15 minutes on them every meeting. You present information, but the county doesn't want you to have an opinion. You want to be appointed CPOs. You want to decide who your own people are. You are losing your budget, and you have less one. And if you don't genuflect, Bruce, you said this, if you don't genuflect correctly or pay attention, you lose funding. And I am really disappointed. I'm a born and raised Oregonian, Forest Grove, all my life. And speaking of those trees you talked about, my great-great-great-grandfather bought those up from, John Porter brought those up from California. And so I have a long history in Washington County, and I am really disappointed that I don't feel like I have a forum to bring to either my CPO 7 or to you folks or anybody other than to go to the county and bitch directly to them. This seems to be a lot of people who are upset about the process, and there is nobody going to the county to say, your process sucks, and you are not representing the people in this community very well. And you've got organizations that are supposed to do it, but they are not enabled. And so I will leave you with that. Good luck, and I'll watch the next meeting, but this is very disappointing, not about you guys, but about Washington County and its process.
Well, don't leave us, David. Don't give up. Don't give up on us, David. We're going to get there.
Yeah.
Well, and what you're hearing is a bunch of people who started off feeling exactly the way you do, and who have been buffeted and brought down over the years, ever since the CPL system came under the county purview. We lowered our expectations, and farther and farther. And I agree. It'd be nice if we could stand up on our hind legs.
With a good effect. Mary, what do you got?
I move to adjourn.
I have a point I want to raise. When is the CCI meeting and how do people find the link for it?
The steering committee?
The steering committee, yes.
It's
I mean,
on
I've done it, but I think we ought to make it public to anybody who's listening and encourage them to know how to come to
Sure.
the steering
If
committee
you-
meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Yes, tomorrow at 11 to 1, we have the steering committee meeting. I wouldn't miss it for the world. If you go to washingtoncounty.or.gov and put CCI in the search bar, you'll go to the CCI page, and then down a little bit is a list of meetings, and the steering committee meeting is right there. And if you look at the full agenda, the CCI steering committee link is listed in useful stuff.
Thank you.
That makes us feel important, doesn't it? Useful stuff.
Useful stuff.
So there's a motion on the floor. It needs a second.
I'll second.
Class dismissed.
Take a vote.
Thank you, Bruce.
We'll take a vote. We're not taking a vote. We're getting out of here. Bye.
Bye. Smile.
Thank you.
Good night, pirates.
Thank you.